And hello, Vikings fans. It's all come down to week 18. The Vikings are 14-2. The opposition is 14-2. One of these teams is going to have a wonderful day on Sunday. The other one's going to get ready for an immediate battle the following week. Here's the hope, and it's the Vikings. Now let's break this all down, starting with last week's recap. Vikings beat the Packers for the second time this season, 27-25. The score was a lot closer than the actual game was, realistically. You had the Vikings with the 441 total yards offense. The Packers only managed 271. And the Vikings also only allowed one sack as opposed to the Packers allowing 3. So, yeah, it's the score was close, but I mean, the Packers needed 15 fourth quarter points just to make it close again after, once the Vikings scored that touchdown in the first quarter, they didn't relinquish the lead the rest of the game. It's all that matters is that the Vikings got the W, and they did it, in my opinion, pretty convincingly. The defense looked great. The offensive line stood up. Had a couple of nicks in the running game, but other than that, and then Sammy Darnold. Well, we'll get to him in a little bit. The other things I want to highlight: Pro Bowlers were announced. Vikings had 6 players voted in. That's the third most of any team in the NFL. Sam Darnold got in his first time. Justin Jefferson his 4th time. On the defensive side of the ball, Van Ginkel, Grenard, and Murphy each had their first Pro Bowl appearance this year. That's awesome. And the final guy, special teams, Andrew DePaula, the long snapper, who will be his 3rd consecutive Pro Bowl visit. So good for him. Hope you guys enjoy that flag football game coming up the week before the Super Bowl. Except, hopefully, we'll see. Well, we're not even going to say it. Say it. All I'm going to say. Typically, when a team gets to the Super Bowl, their players don't play in the Pro Bowl, which is fine. So we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be a few players on each side of the ball who are elected to the Pro Bowl that aren't going. But we're not worried about that yet. Sorry, my ears flopping over. Anywho. So, last week's game against the Packers, defensively. 4 sacks. Love got hit 8 times, pressured a bunch more. It was the defense was good. The stat card doesn't show a whole lot of it. I mean, there wasn't any interceptions. The 4 sacks is pretty good. But the pressures don't really show up on there. The disrupting of the pass if the player doesn't get their hand on it, and obviously there was some penalties on both sides of the ball. Some of them were a little bush league. Some of them were kind of ticky tack. I see people whining about it on both sides of the coin, and there are valid complaints either way. But you know what? No, the referees never call a perfect game. And it wasn't super egregious in either way. So, so the Packers struggled mightily on offense. I mean, there was only 167 total passing yards by the Packers in that game. In fact, the wide receivers for Green Bay averaged just 8 yards a catch, which is pretty low, which is really low. That's below even like what the strongest teams in the league are allowing on a weekly basis to the position. But yeah, the defense, all facets, played great. Just a couple of plays that they give up some chunks, and teams are going to score. You don't need to shut out the other team to win. Not worried about it. So yeah, Cashman had 1.5 sacks. Dallas Turner came in there and got a sack. Gink had half a sack. Grenard hit the quarterback 3 times. Led the team in that stat for the day. It was great all over the place. Another side note, I want to announce there was another award given out this week to Josh Metellus. He won the Corey Stringer Media Good Guy of the Year award, which is an award that the media members give to a Vikings player every year. Somebody who, is respectful and outgoing and basically nice to them. It's basically Media gives you an award, gives out an award like to basically appreciate the fact that a player or players are willing to take time to respectfully answer questions and talk to the media people on a regular basis. Obviously they're not going to do it every time, but guys like Metellus, I mean, he was even doing still a few things like some goofy, locker room interviews with players and stuff. Metellus is a fun guy, clearly, and he's a great football player. Love Josh Metellus. Loved him for many years now. Offensive side of the ball, Sam Darnold, 33 of 43 completed 33 of 43 passes. Career high, 377 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. My goodness. It's just too good. He's just doing too well. He's totally earned that Pro Bowl spot. He's earned serious consideration for Comeback Player of the Year award. He's earned serious consideration, yes, for MVP, because he's having the best season of his career. It's anybody who says that he shouldn't be in the MVP vote is on something, and I want some. So send that over if you're that kind of thought process, whatever. But Darnold's been great. Darnold's been absolutely awesome. He's going to make so much money in the offseason. And I just hope he continues to do it because we'll just throw this. I will address the elephant in the room. Every time he has a great game and the Vikings win another game and they look a little bit better, it's going to come back to, well, maybe they should re-sign him and let McCarthy sit on the bench for another year and learn and gain some experience. You're not going to gain a lot of experience with sitting on the bench. Darnold is going to command upwards of $35 million a year. He's not going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. But there will be a team out there who says, hey, Sam, come play for us 3 years. Here's $115 million. How many of you watching this out there would say, no thanks, I'll take $20 million to play for the same team for another year? Vikings aren't signing him for more than a year, maybe 2. If they were, the price, they're just going to be priced out. They're going to have a lot of cap space, but look at what they did with the cap space this year by signing Darnold instead of Cousins. They brought in Van Ginkel. They brought in Grenard. They brought in Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, all these different players that they wouldn't have been able to afford, who are also some of these guys are going to demand contracts. They're going to need, like Van Ginkel, I think, is only on a 1-year deal. He's going to need a new contract. And the Vikings have like this projected like the 6th or 7th most cap space going into next year. And part of that is the fact that there's, guys with 1-year contracts like Darnold, like Grenard, like Gink, I would love to have Sam Darnold stick around. I don't think it's financially responsible for the Vikings to do that. But again, I won't say boo if he resigns and sticks around and starts for another year. And I will wish him all the best wherever he goes. But until then, he's kicking ass for us. Aaron Jones, 12 for 47. He left the game a little early, so he only had those 12 carries. He had 4 catches for 30 yards, so a decent stat day. He also, obviously, if I remember, he's already off the injury report, so he'll be playing this week. So he had a fine day. Akers came in and had 6 carries for 18 yards, but also had 2 catches for 15 yards, which were probably the 2 most important catches of the day, because one of them scored the touchdown that kept us 2 scores ahead, kept us ahead, gave us the big enough lead, and he also caught the pass for the first down to salt away the clock at the end of the game. I'm telling you, Cam Akers, Cam Akers and Aaron Jones are fairly interchangeable. They could both carry 50% of the load. They could split time. They could split carries. They could split opportunities. They're both good. Akers was an early second round pick a few years ago. The only thing that's kept him down is some catastrophic injuries. Jones is great pass catcher, really good running back. Akers, really good running back, really good pass catcher. It's a two-headed monster. It's not Sonic and Knuckles from the Lions, but they're great. They're so good. It's just, if one goes down, we don't have to worry about it because the other one can step up and do just fine in his absence. Jefferson, 11 targets, caught 8 of them from 92. Oddly enough, last time against the Lions, who played this week, he caught 7 catches for 81 in the score. So pretty similar stat line. Addison this last week, 6 for 69 in a score. Last time we played them, 6 for 66, or 3 for 66. Sorry, 3 for 66. It's odd how some of these numbers match up to what they played last week to what they played last time they played the Lions. If I won't go back to Darnold, it's a little different. He was 259, 1-1. But he also had 4 carries for 39 yards. Back to wide receivers. Jalen Naylor, man, stepped up. Earned back some of that respect. I mean, he'd been dropping a pass here and there the last few weeks. He had that one poorly executed attempt at trying to catch a punt that over his head. That still bothers me. But he came in while the Packers were doubling up and bracketing Addison and Jefferson. Naylor, 5 for 5 or 81 on a score. Welcome back, Naylor. And last time against the Lions, guess what he did? 4 for 76. I mean, he's playing the role of that third wide receiver wonderfully. He's playing it to the best of his ability. He's making catches when he needs to. If one of those 3 guys is open, you're going to get the ball. Sam Darnold has developed more as the season's gone on. Early in the season, he was checking 1, 2, 3, and then throw the ball somewhere. Now he's going back to his third option. He goes, if the first one's covered, he goes to the second one. If the second one's covered, to the third. The third's not ready yet. He goes to the fourth. Goes back to the third. Checks the first again. Go on watch. One of the just pick out a play where you see him drop back to pass and try and watch how many times you can see his head tilt back and forth, or you see his eyes. If you watch the slow motion replays or whatever, or if you go watch the L22, just see how many times his head moves. He'll move back and forth 6 times sometimes because he's checking every single route. He's going back to the other ones, and they're all making plays. It's beautiful. It's poetry. Hawkinson had 5 catches for 68 yards last week against the Packers. In the last game, he didn't play. He was still out. Vikings tight ends did catch 5 passes in that game, although for only a combined 13 yards. Not a big deal. Lions have some troublemakers in the middle. So I'm not expecting a huge day from Hawk, but he'll be out there making catches. And he can. He's Hawkinson. We know what he can do. Special teams. Just talking about Reichert. 3 for 3 PATs, 2 for 4 field goals. So, yeah, not his best day at the office. However, that 55-yard he missed, which then the Packers were called for the neutral zone infraction, which I've seen people that's so bogus of a call. I will say that was ticky-tack. That was really, really close. I will also say that the person they called for it was not the person they should have called for it. It was the next guy on the far right there, who is literally if you look at the overhead shot of it, I know it's available online. I've seen it a number of times. He was a couple inches forward, and if you line it up with where the ball was on the 1 hash mark and where he was right in front of the other hash mark, he was in the neutral zone. But again, really ticky-tack. In a neutral game, I probably would have looked at it as why are you calling that? But you know what? It happened. Reichert got the lineup for a 50-yarder after that and make it because he's good. He also made all 3 of his field goals in the last game against the Lions. So, speaking of the Lions, let's talk about the Motor City Kitties now. This will be the 127th meeting between the Vikings and the Lions. 127th time. As it stands right now, Minnesota is dominating the series 80-44-2. But Detroit did win each of the last 4 matchups, including the one earlier this year. where they won 31-29. And that was a great game. It was two powerhouse offenses going back and forth, making some defensive stops here and there. And it just came down to who had the ball last, which it easily could again in this one. That one was in Minnesota. This one's in Detroit. Last week, the Lions, in a game that meant absolutely nothing, because nothing they did last week affects anything that happens for the rest of the season for them. Just like nothing that happens, just like this game means everything for both teams now. Last week, they won 40-34 over a broken and beaten and well-eliminated San Francisco 49ers team. They gave up, oddly enough, 377 yards. There's a weird number of parallels between last week's game and this week's game matchup. You'll catch a few of them here and there. But yeah, 377 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns allowed by the Lions last week. And that's 34 total points. Granted, yeah, they've been one of the most snake-bitten teams this year when it comes to injury, and it's shown over the last few weeks when it comes to what they've done defensively and a little bit off. Well, not so much offensively, but mostly defensively. But offensively, Jared Goff last week, 303 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. Last time he played the Vikings, probably had his most efficient game of the year. 22 completions on 28 passes, 280 yards and 2 scores. Gibbs last week, 117 yards and a score, 4 catches for 46 yards. Last time against the Vikings, 116 yards, 2 scores, 4 catches for 44 yards. Again, these eerie similar parallels between games. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the guy who's going to give the Vikings the most problems this week on the offensive side of the ball, because the weakest part of the Vikings defense, and it's the part that Detroit exploited partially last year, and also the Rams exploited in that short week after that, was Amon-Ra has had 8 catches last week for 60 yards and a score. Against the Vikings back in week 7, 8 catches for 112 yards and a score. Williams, he had 5 catches for 77 last week. He scored. He only had 1 catch for -4 the last time he played the Vikings, but they had guys like Khalif Raymond coming in and doing their thing, who is an absolutely a viable pass-catching threat for any team in the NFL. Love Khalif Raymond personally as a player, as a wide receiver. He's wonderful. I was hoping that the Vikings might have tried to sign him a couple years ago. But anywho, but Williams is a big threat too, because he's got that deep play ability. I mean, we all remember when we played against the Titans a few weeks ago, that 99-yard touchdown reception by Nick Westbrook-Akine. Those things happen. Broken plays happen. Happens to the best teams. And then Laporta, another guy we got to watch out for in the middle and in short yardage. He's kind of had a renaissance in the last few weeks. If you were playing fantasy and held on to him and had him through the playoffs, you probably did you really well. 6 catches for 64 yards and a score last week, as opposed to 1 catch for 25 yards against the Vikings in week 7. All of these pieces are volatile. They could all explode. Even the running back, especially, now with Gibbs not having a split time with Monty. He had 18 carries this last week. He's going to get 20-plus touches in the game. I need to get new ears, or I need to not wear these ones. Maybe it's okay. I'll get a stapler next time. Anywho, it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Defensively, the Lions defense was solid for a lot of the year, but they've had some serious issues the last few weeks. And yeah, a lot of it's because of injuries. They haven't had Anzalone. Hutchinson's been out. You name it. There's a dozen. At one point they had like 12 guys on their injured reserve list. It's ridiculous. And the fact that they keep winning, testament to the grit that they're showing on the field. They have allowed 569 passing attempts on the season. Out of all the teams in the NFL who have allowed more than 540 passing attempts, or seen more than 550 passing attempts against them, they have the most yards per attempt at 7.4 yards per passing attempt. They also have allowed 361.7 passing yards per game in the last 3 weeks, including 400 last week. 400 passing yards last week they allowed. Rushing, they're still tough. The 11.94 yards per reception on the season the Lions allowed. Third most in the league. Kind of like the opposite of the rushing yards. 97 rushing yards allowed per game. Third fewest in the league. Vikings are going to have to go through the air to get the ball downfield. Another interesting stat. So the Lions have seen the fewest rushing attempts in the league. And it's the reason they have the third fewest rushing yards allowed per game in the NFL. Third behind the Ravens and the Vikings. But with those 350 rushing attempts, they've allowed 18 rushing scores. That is insane, kind of. That is more than 1 out of every 20 attempts becomes a touchdown. That's more than 5%. That doesn't sound like a big number. But that is, you compare it to all the rest of the teams, it is obnoxious. No other team has got even close to 5%. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it's an interesting stat that I found. 5% of the carries against the Lions have turned into rushing touchdowns. So if the Vikings run the ball 20 times, does that pretty much guarantee that at least one of them is going to be a touchdown? Well, maybe. He did score against them last time we played them on the ground. So there's that. But I just wanted to highlight that because I found it really interesting when I was going through numbers and making, math equations. That's not a word. Anywho. So yeah, Vikings are going to get it done through the air. And then Aaron Jones probably scores a touchdown. Or Cam Akers. Or Sam Darnold. Or somebody does it without having to catch the ball. Defensive players for the Lions. Alex Anzalone looks like he might make his return this weekend. He's probably their most disruptive weapon on the defensive side of the ball. The last time he played the Vikings, he had 7 tackles and 8 tackles, and 7 of them were solo tackles. Like I said, he gets all over the place. He doesn't get a lot of sacks, doesn't really do the interception thing, but he's always in the play. He's always getting in somebody's way, making tackles. Somebody to watch out for. Jack Campbell, another guy in the middle of the field. 125 tackles leads the team. He's one of 2 players on the defensive side of the ball for the Lions who has played and started every single one of their 16 games so far. The other one is Kirby Joseph, who I detest this man. Sure, he's leading the league in interceptions with 9. He's got 12 passes defended. And he had 7 tackles in the game against the Vikings before. The reason I don't like him is he still does that hip tackle thing that's supposed to be against the rules now. And he did it last year to 2 different players that caused them to tear their knees up, and one of them was T.J. Hawkinson. Hey, NFL, you made the rule for a reason. Frickin' enforce it before he does it to somebody else, because he's still been doing the hip tackle thing this year. You're going to do this whole stupid, the tackle isn't lined up close enough to the line of scrimmage penalty. Bull roar. Get off it. Call the right penalty before somebody else gets hurt again. I mean, I know there was Joe Mixon got hurt early in the season off a hip tackle that didn't get called too. All right. I just had to rant a little bit there. But yeah, Kirby Joseph, somebody wants to lay him out at some point in the game, go for it. I don't wish injury, but I kind of hope he gets the flu at like 10 a.m. and can't get over it in time for the game on Sunday. Anywho, I've gone on my rant long enough. Let's finish this up. The injury report. We're going to be without Patrick Jones, unfortunately. So he has 7 or 8 sacks on the season. He'll have to be it for him, but we'll see him in the play. He'll be back for the playoffs, I'm sure. Kamu Grugier-Hill, he's been sick all week. Questionable. He may or may not play. I don't know. Like I said, he didn't practice all week, so we'll see. And then Fabian Moreau, possibly active. He had a hip thing that took him out for a couple weeks. He's a good depth piece. So we'll see. On the defensive side of the ball, obviously, we already mentioned David Montgomery still out. He'll be out. I don't know if he might come back for the playoffs at some point for the Lions. Who knows? We talked about Anzalone probably returning. And then Craig Reynolds, questionable with a back injury. He did not practice all week. Maybe he had one limited practice, but still, if he doesn't play, then they're limited to just Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, stud running back. And then they're a rookie running back, Vaki. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. So, no, I'm not going to. Sione Vaki. He's their rookie running back, and he would get the second looks on the team, but it would be very few, if any. The betting lines, this is the first time I've done an episode where the betting line is in favor of the opposition. Vikings are at plus 130 to win as of Friday evening. Detroit is at minus 155. So it's really close. It's like, all right, somebody's got to be favored. Somebody's got to not be favored. And I feel like also, so the spread is 3 points plus Minnesota. Now, if you're not familiar with how betting works, typically the betting line, how the spread works is they give 3 points to the home team as, a home field advantage kind of thing. So what they're basically saying is by giving the -3 to Detroit, is what I mean. They -3 to the home team. So basically, if this was a neutral site, it'd be a pick'em game, which would be like, coin flip game. It's going to be obnoxious. It's going to be loud. I know there's going to be a ton of Vikings fans who make the trip. There's going to be swashes of purple throughout the stadium. The skull chant's going to go up at some point, I'm sure, unless they just get kind of like boat race in the first half that night. But it's close, and it's that 3-point swing is really, really close. It could end up being like another 2-point game like it was last week, which is probably why 56% of the bets that I've seen that have been placed already, stat via Yahoo, 56% were put on Vikings for the spread. So taking that plus 3 points. So saying that the game will be determined by less than 3 points in either the Vikings will win or the Lions will win by less than 3. It's tough. It's really, really tough. And I would absolutely, if I was going to bet on any of that, it would be on the spread, because I would take the +3 for the Vikings, because I do think it'll come down to which team has the ball last, who's the last team to put the points on the board. It's, I think that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be, the over-under is 56. It was at 57, I guess, earlier, which is like the highest over-under since sometime in 2020, I think I saw or heard. So we're expecting a whole ton of points. It could be like 42-40 or something. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. Both of these teams are hungry. Both of these teams have everything to play for. You either get that first round bye, you win and you get that first round bye, or you lose and you have to get ready for another opponent the week after. And it's going to be either the Rams or the Falcons or the Bucks, And honestly, I'd love to throw down with the Rams again. I think, with the full squad and not playing on a short week like we did against them last time. Because you got to remember, those 2 games that the Vikings lost were in less than a 5-day period. It was it was a Sunday night and then a Thursday night game. It was kind of crazy, but I think the Vikings, do I want to actually say they're going to win? Yes, they're going to win. I'm saying it. They're going to win. Valkyrie says they're going to win. That's right. You agree with me. Otherwise, you don't get treats later. So, anytime touchdown. My anytime touchdowns have been awful this year. But if I really had to pick one, it's going to be Aaron Jones. And it's because of that crazy rushing score stat that we found. That's who I would put mine on. But maybe I can work it as like a jinx. Maybe that's what it's been. Maybe it's been a jinx. So maybe my anti-touchdown would be J-Mo Williams for the Lions. We'll do that. Aaron Jones for the Vikings. I already said it. I can't take it back. J-Mo Williams for the Detroit Lions. And that's going to be it. Oh, Vikings fans, this has been one of the greatest seasons that I've ever watched. And I remember 09, and I remember 07, and I remember 98. But this one has been obnoxious. And I remember the Minneapolis Miracle, obviously. But the team that everybody doubted, that Vegas and all the pundits and the talking heads of the football analysis world were all like, Vikings, 6.5 wins. That's the over-under. We made you all look bad. Vikings, 14 wins. And they're on the verge, the precipice, taking the first round bye in the playoffs and then having the whole road to the Super Bowl go through Minnesota. That just sounds beautiful. But here we are, week 18, 17th game of the season. It all comes down to this. Nothing else that's happened to this point matters. Whoever wins gets it. Loser gets ready for another game the week after. And I'm excited for it. And I hope to see lots of pretty streamers after the game on Sunday. It's the last game of the week. The very last game of the regular season. It's obnoxious. It's crazy. I'm going to love it. You're going to love it. Vikings are going to win. Book it. Let's just say 37-35. Throw that out there. And with that, I am your host, the RabbitDad. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Blue Sky. Say hi to me on Reddit. Drop a comment in the video. And I'll see you guys all in the next one. Until then, keep those purple